So tonight we're going to visit the handout because I am still trying to prepare a lesson on the next philosophy that we're going to deconstruct. And I thought I would have it ready tonight, but I want to put some more. I want to put some more work into it. So we only have 2 more handouts left with the Bible study program that we were using, and that's number 4 and 5. Tonight we're going to be in number 4, and number 4 is advice to the youth. And you know, I don't want this to be a bashing type of situation where we're bashing young people, because next week we're going to be dealing with people who aren't so young. So this week is advice to the youth, and the next week we're going to be dealing with folks who not so young. So, you know, if we beat up the young this week, we have to beat up the older people next week. So just keep that in mind with how we want to yield our swords, our tongue swords. Okay. So so we're going to be dealing with that handout tonight. Let me share the screen for this handout. Here, put it on the screen, study 4. And I want to encourage you to use your mute button. So you might not realize this, but somebody is eating right now. We can hear you. Whoever it is eating, we hear you munching it up. I hope it's delicious. Hope it tastes good. And I hope it's also nutritious, but we don't have to listen. So put your phone on mute. If you are eating, that's good. I'm glad you're getting your nutrition in, but we don't want to join in. So please go on mute if you are eating something crunchy. It sounded crunchy, whatever you were eating, whoever that was, or whatever you're eating, sounded crunchy. Maybe it was also delicious as well. And I hope so. I certainly hope you're eating something that is delicious and not, oh, it was Tom. It was Tom, everybody. Tom is the one who was munching on the phone. He is the guilty party here. Tom was munching. All right. So brothers and sisters, I'm just so very good. Oh, I will try to rid my heart of all strands of envy. All right. So I hope you enjoyed your bicycling excursion. All right. So I have my screen shared here for the Proverbs. All right. So and let's jump on in. So we're dealing tonight with advice for the youth. Advice for the youth. And it's interesting. The first question for our discussion tonight is, what figurative junk foods are you feasting on? Good thing Tom wasn't eating junk food, because he would have been. What figurative junk food do our youth feast on? And which ones do you feast on? All right, so listen to this from the, let me see. All right.
Hey, Lois, we getting some serious feedback. I think somebody's got like two devices on in the same room.
I muted them. Yeah, let me go ahead and do this. I just realized somebody was here to, well, the somebody is Andre. He's here to help me out with that. So I've got Andre on that. All right, so let me read this to you. This is from the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. It said, potato chips, cheese curls, and candy may be some of your favorite things to eat, but for a few mule deer in Arizona's Grand Canyon National Park, these foods proved to be deadly. Park rangers had to kill over 24 mule deer because they became hooked on junk food left by visitors to the park. How terrible. Poor deer had to die because visitors were leaving junk food at the park. Once they got the taste of the sugar and salt, the deer developed an extreme addiction, and will go to any lengths to eat only junk food. You know, it's funny about this article is that humans develop that same extreme addiction, and not only do they develop it, but we have commercials about it. You know, you may have seen the Snicker bar commercial where the people go, you know, they really turn into a whole nother person and they're cantankerous. And then once they eat a Snicker bar, they calm down. Once they get their fix and they calm down, you know, it's humans do the same thing. Well, the deers did that. The deers develop an extreme addiction. The result is the animals ignore the food they need, leaving them in poor health and on the edge of starvation. Because of junk food cravings, the deer lose their ability to digest vegetation. 1 park ranger called the junk food. Okay, brace yourselves for this. A bit politically incorrect, but this is what the article says. The crack cocaine of the deer world. Scripture warns us of the dangers of developing a craving for things of this world. Such a diet keeps us from hungering for the things of God. Now, I'm going to offer this caveat one more time for those who came late. Well, this will preface rather. I'm going to offer this one more time for those who came late. And this week, the class is called Advice to Youth. Advice to Youth. Next week, we're going to be dealing with advice to older folks. Now, I really don't want this to become a bashing session because however much we bash this week, we got to bash the same amount of bashing whenever we get to the advice for older folks. It might not be next week. I may be prepared to discuss the next philosophical doctrine that we want to deconstruct by next week. So it may be the week after that. But whenever we get to it, I want equal bashing. If we're going to do any bashing, it has to be the same for younger folks and older folks. And neither group is perfect. And that's what our sermon was about yesterday. All right. Both groups are flawed, or Sunday rather. Both groups are flawed. Okay. Now that
Hey,
helps.
Lawrence?
Yes.
I just want to point out something from the handout. It says that in the Bible times, youth was not defined by age, but rather by life experiences.
Yes. Thank you so much. Very good point. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. Where was that at? That's in the introduction. Yes. Youth is not defined in the Bible by age, but rather by status, married or not, living at home or not. The verses we will look at in the study describe how the inexperienced and naive should give their bodies, eyes, ears, heart, and feet to wisdom in order to experience life in its fullest. The book of Proverbs is written for young people. Those of us who are older need to show our youth how they can apply wisdom in their lives. Thank you for pointing that out, Becky. And I also want to point out that whether you're married or not, it doesn't have much to do with your maturity. I think there's people who are quite immature who are married, and also folks who are quite mature who are unmarried. So I want to definitely say a kind word to the single people out there, because it could have been maybe worded a little better, but I get what it's trying to say nonetheless. All right. So what are figurative junk? So, putting your minds back on the story about the deer, what are figurative junk foods that are you feast on? And then which one do you feast on? So it may be good that to balance it out, that if you talk about what the youth are feasting on, maybe you can also discuss what you're feasting on when it comes to figurative junk foods like the deer in the park.
Fat and sugar.
Yes, so that is a literal junk food, definitely, and I thank you for that. And that's what deer were eating too. The deer were eating sugar and salt, fat and sugar. I'm curious, what are some of the figurative, meaning, more poetically speaking, what are some of the figurative, like, metaphorical
games,
junk foods?
Lawrence, this is Karen. For me, figurative junk food would be television. I can get hooked up in a mini series, and it's crazy that I have to see it. So is that what you mean? Something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Something like that. That's very good. Thank you so much for being so candid. Anybody else who's going to care to share?
I would say video games.
Video games. Yes, very good.
And then, binging on Netflix or Hulu or Amazon Prime or whatever your favorite streaming app is.
Yes, very good. Thank you. Vi has her hand up. Thank you, Melinda. Yes, Vi.
It's Joel.
Okay.
Hey, I think young people like to feast on, I know it all. I can't tell my daughter nothing.
My goodness.
That's not true. That's not true. She listens a little teeny bit. But that attitude of, old people don't know nothing. Us young folks, we know it all. I think that's a sugar that they are hooked on, that it takes them a while to grow up and then look back later when they're dealing with their own children and say, oh yeah, I had that wrong.
Yes. All right. I'm so grateful for you sharing, Joel. And good thing that only young people are like that. Good thing that older people aren't like that, and you just can't tell them nothing. Just stuck in their ways.
I wasn't I wasn't trying to imply that.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Okay.
I thought I heard you say this was Bash Young People Week.
No,
So
I didn't say that. No.
okay, that's why I framed it like that. I was in no way trying to let myself off the hook.
That's the exact opposite of what I said. I said we got to be balanced here about our, Now, yes, thank you so much, Joel, and thank you, Joel. That's good. I just wanted to point out, as Joel already knows, I know he knows this, that's something that older folks deal with too. In fact, it may be even worse than older folks.
Yes.
Because they they have a match of resources. They have paid the cost to be the boss, so it's a lot easier to be that way when you have resources. All right, or life experience. All right, brother Alan has his hand up. Alan.
I was just going to say that the internet can be junk food.
Yes.
And that doesn't mean it's necessarily bad. There's a lot of good stuff on the internet, but it can become addictive and it can keep you from doing the things that you need to be doing.
Yes, thank you so much there, Alan. So true. The internet, as one president would call it, the internets. Very good. Thank you so much. All right. Laura says she likes to watch Facebook pet videos, and I can see that, Laura. And Stephanie says Netflix, Prime, Hulu. She likes the Greenleaf TV series. And Andre says, me too. And Melinda told Joelle, you will look wise again to her one day. Very sweet of you to say that, Melinda. God bless you. All right. Now, the next discussion question is, Mark says he likes potato chips, figurative, brother, but I guess literal and figurative. That's fine. The potato chips is both Mark's literal and figurative junk food when it comes to spiritual junk food. All right, brother. Very good. All right. Now, the next question is, if you could give one piece of advice to a youth close to you, what would it be? How would that line up with what we've been studying in Proverbs? Now, you don't have to name the youth. You can say, I know a youth. You don't have to put anybody in front. I know a youth, and I would give them this advice. And you can then also tell us how that would line up with Proverbs.
I would say to just set aside some amount of time and actually make an intention to sit down and read a book of the Bible. So if you're maybe you want to go through Proverbs, to just say, okay, I'm going to read for a certain amount of time or a certain amount of pages, and just do that. Just you have to have the intention to do it. Because just meaning to do something, it often doesn't happen unless you really make the time, plan to do it, have the intention to do it that day or at a certain time.
Yes. Yes. Very good. Thank you so much. All right. Any others?
I went to a seminar years ago, and you may have heard of this book, 4 Pages of a Sermon, Lawrence.
Yes.
So this book I like the book because it talks about how you look at what was happening in the Bible times, whatever chapter, book, whatever, and what the solution was. And then you look for a similar problem in today's world and how you solve that based on how it was solved in the Bible. So making the Bible applicable to your life today.
Very good. Yes. And that's something that, I practice. I've actually been criticized for. A lot of people don't like application. 4 pages is 1 page will dig into the ancient world. The next page digs into to our world. The next page digs into an ancient problem and a solution. And the next page digs into the problem in our age and the solution. And some people don't really like that. That the name of the book, Andre, was 4 pages, and it's actually, I think it's another name, but that's the concept. It's just a homiletical method. It's one homiletical method out of like a whole bunch of homiletical methods. Homiletical is a term for sermons. It's a way to write a sermon. The book is called the 4 Pages of the Sermon, and the book is written by Paul Scott Wilson. Andre, I have a copy of it in the office if you want to borrow it on Sunday. All right. So yes, very, very good, Becky. That's right. Application. Excellent. Yes. Absolutely. That one really impressed you. That's correct. Yes. Thank you so much, Becky. Yes. I only point out that it's one of several just to emphasize to people that when it comes to homilies, there's many ways to get the message across. But yes, it is a fantastic way. Thank you so much, Becky. All right. So anybody else?
What was the question again, Lauren?
All right. So the question was if
What
you
advice
could.
for young people?
Mhm.
Thank you so much, Tom. You got it, Andre. Tom just told you.
Yeah. Thank you, Tom. So I guess would tell a young person to, as far as their plans for their life, whether it's a job or any other major milestones that they might be planning for their life, is to make sure that they include God. And don't do it after the fact when things go awry. Maybe your plans didn't go as you expected, but to do it in light of God's will as opposed to your own.
Very good. Very good. Thank you so much. Stephanie says in the comments, she says, don't throw away the old generation like they didn't know anything. They helped save a lot of children. I had a conversation with someone about this discrediting advice from an older generation. And you know what? Like, I honestly think that is a problem. That is just a human problem. Like, I mean, I don't know if it's maybe just an American problem. I guess it's a part of Western civilization, but it is not new. Like, older people feel like that they were thrown away, or younger people disregarding the advice of older people is not new. They took Charlie Brown, and older people would come talk to the children. Want. Think about Greece. Think about the television show Greece, with everybody was rebelling against their parents' advice. Think about the James Dean film Rebel Without a Cause. A whole film about young people not listening to the advice of older people, thinking that older people we're looking at the 50s now and the 40s. I mean, it's just always been a part. It seems like it's been a part of Western civilization for a long time. And this thing, I don't think it's a new thing. I don't think it's new, and something that is for some reason is there, and that's disregarding the wisdom of the older generation. Matter of fact, some of you might think about how you might have did that when you were younger, right? As well. So, so that, you say it seems to getting worse, but I mean, think about how turbulent the 60s were, and the free love movement and the hippie movement. I mean, those people's parents were not approving of that. They weren't on board and thumbs up for that by and large. So I don't know if it's getting worse or not. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how we would even measure that, but I do know that, as Stephanie points out, that it is problematic and it's here, Melinda says, no, Stephanie, we're just the older ones now. All right, very good. So let's dig into some scripture. So Proverbs 4:20 and verse 4, I'm going to look at tonight. Proverbs 4:20, and I'm going to read that. It says, my child, be attentive to my words, incline your ears to my sayings. Do not let them escape from your sight. Keep them within your heart, for they are life to those who find them and healing to all their flesh. Keep your heart with all vigilance, for from it flow the springs of life. Put away from you crooked speech and put divisive talk far from you. Let your eyes look directly forward and your gaze be straight before you. Keep straight the path of your feet, and all your ways will be sure. Do not swerve to the right or left. Turn your foot away from evil. I really enjoy reading this passage to you all at this time. I really enjoy reading this. In other words, it's a saying, listen up. Give means to extend like an antenna. So this proverb is instructing young people to listen well to this passage, their parents, and to the voice of God through God's word and their conscience, according to our handout here. And so the handout points out, it says that this is what the handout says. It says Emmy-winning actress Patricia Hinton, star of the TV series Everybody Loves Raymond, explained in the Plain Dealer why she walked out in the middle of the American Music Awards ceremony. What was passing for humor basically ranged from stupid to vulgar, and I just thought, I'm not going to be a part of this. The handout goes on to say, many of us need to have that attitude that we will listen to and speak what is good rather than evil. We need to trade complaining for thankfulness, sassing for honor, dirty talk for clean speech, and blaming others for taking responsibility, rather. All right, so any thoughts so far on the Proverbs 4 passage and the illustration about Patricia Hinton? All right, so I want us to now kind of look at Ephesians 5, 1 through 20, and then we'll come back to Proverbs. Let's go to Ephesians 5, 1 through 20. If somebody could read that for us. Let me put it on the screen here.
Lawrence, I can read it if you like.
All right, thank you so much.
You said Ephesians 5, 1 through 20.
Yes.
All right. You ready for me to go?
Yes, please. Thank you.
All right. Follow God's example, therefore, as dearly loved children, and walk in the way of love, just as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us as a fragrant offering and sacrifice to God. But among you, there must not be any hint of sexual immorality or of any kind of impurity or of greed, because these are improper for God's holy people. Nor should there be obscenity, foolish talk, or coarse joking, which are out of place, but rather thanksgiving. For of this you can be sure, no immoral, impure, or greedy person, such a person is an idolater, has any inheritance in the kingdom of Christ and of God. Let no one deceive you with empty words, for because of such things, God's wrath comes on those who are disobedient. Therefore, do not be partners with them. For you were once darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. Live as children of light, for the fruit of the light consists in all goodness, righteousness, and truth. And find out what pleases the Lord. Have nothing to do with fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. It is shameful even to mention what the disobedient do in secret, but everything exposed by the light becomes visible, and everything that is illuminated becomes a light. This is why it is said, wake up, sleeper, rise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you. Be very careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of the opportunity because the days are evil. Therefore, do not be foolish, but understand what the Lord's will is. Do not get drunk on wine, which leads to debauchery. Instead, be filled with the Spirit, speaking to one another with psalms, hymns, and songs from the Spirit. Sing and make music from your heart to the Lord, always giving thanks to God the Father for everything in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ.
Thank you so much, Andre. This is such a beautiful passage. It is so beautiful. Be imitators of God as beloved children. Live in love as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us as a flagrant offering. It is just so sad that some people have reduced this set of scriptures to just to verse 19. That is sad. That is sad. But all this is so beautiful. Let no one deceive you with empty words, for because of these things the wrath of God comes on those who are disobedient. That is so beautiful. Don't be deceived by empty words. Try to find out what is pleasing to the Lord. Look for what is pleasing to God. Search for what is pleasing to God. Take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness, but instead expose them. So, I'm not supposed to take part in them, but see, that's very passive. I don't take part in the unfruitful works of darkness today. That's a passive response, and that's good. But it also says to expose them, and that's also an active response. So don't take part of them, but rather expose them. For it is shameful even to mention what such people do secretly. But everything exposed by the light becomes visible. And that's one thing I like about what somebody said earlier about the television. And Alan brought up the internet. And one thing that the television and the internet does is it exposes things that people do secretly. And now what's in the light becomes visible for everybody to see. Shameful things have been normalized, and therefore we live in a time where there is no shame. And I think people in general, but also young folks, are struggling to understand what it means to be ashamed. And if you say something to me that makes me feel shame, then you're the one that's wrong. You're shaming me. You make me feel shame. You should embrace everything I do all the time, no matter what. So, so it says, be careful then how you live, not as unwise people, but as wise, making the most of the time because the days are evil. Golly, that is the truth. Isn't that the truth? The days are evil. These are some evil days. These days are evil. I have to drop a bomb for the holy word of God. This is really touching my soul at this moment. All right. So we have got to our ears and our mouth. We must give your ears and mouth to wisdom. Give your ears and mouth to wisdom. All right. So we should think about what does it mean to be imitators of God? So, it looks like that we're going to have to do this lesson over the course of maybe next week too, because I'm not going to get through all of these notes. So I'm just going to slow down a bit and let's just really dig into this Ephesians 5 passage. Is that okay for everybody?
Yes.
We'll do more of this lesson next week because I got to get through 4 teaching points and I'm only on number 1. It's already 8 o'clock. So the question is, what does it mean to be imitators of God and what we listen to and speak?
Hey, Brother Law.
Yes, sir.
To me, God is a protector and a one who takes care of us through creation. So I kind of look at God as the one who created an environment for me to not only live in, but to thrive in.
Yes.
And so because I view the creator like that, to me, to imitate God is to try and create that same environment for others. How do I, through love, create an environment where others can grow and thrive, like everybody? I mean, because the earth supports everybody. It don't support people in Northern Asia and don't support people down in Africa, and then don't support them. And so the whole globe is supported. I mean, I guess we can name some extreme places, maybe 1 or 2 extreme places where you don't find human life. But for the most part, for 90% of this planet, at least from what I know, the majority of the planet, I'm gonna say, we can thrive in it. It's been designed where, if you didn't have electricity and the stove and the AC units and the cars and all that, you could still live there. You just would be living off the land. The land would feed you. The air would support you every day. The sun would come up every day. The moon would come out every like so to me, God is so loving of us that he created, like I said, he created an environment where we can not only live but thrive. And I think that's what, if we're going to imitate him, then that's what we've got to do.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much. According to these verses, what should be our attitude towards obscenity, foolish talk, and coarse jesting, coarse joking? How would you define foolish talk and coarse jesting?
And coarse jokes involve profanity and sexual innuendos, and there's just the sort of things you wouldn't say in front of Jesus or your mother.
It can also be cruel, because
Yes.
it's often demeaning to people, demeaning to women, demeaning. Talked about being demeaning to older people, and just demeaning to people. That's some people find that funny. It's, like just depraved minds. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mark. Any others?
It's anything that's destructive. When we speak, we should do it to build up others as opposed to tearing them down. And I guess being destructive words would, I think, fit in that description.
Thank you so much, brother. iPad said, it makes me think of us being ambassadors for Christ. We carry ourselves as an example of Christian love and always saying, thank you so much, iPad. I'm curious as to who iPad is. Thank you so much for saying that. Thank you so much, Andre, as well. Wonderful. It hurts others in any way, it is bad. All right, very good. Yeah, and that's makes jokes a very tricky thing, because jokes almost by definition either push back or mock cultural mores, a society, cultural phenomenon, something that everybody can somewhat experience or a group of people can understand. That's what makes it funny. And so therefore jokes can be a bit tricky. Because, laughter is a medicine, but at the same time, with laughter being a medicine, like laughter can also be a poison. If somebody's, laughing, everybody's laughing at you, it doesn't feel good. Now, here's something I saw, which is somebody mentioned cursing. And I want to say that, like, I do think that, we should avoid words that our society has found to be vulgar, but I also think that what's even more important is to make sure that, the meaning and the context behind what we're saying isn't vulgar. Our actions are not vulgar. Let me show you an example. There's not a single bad word in what I'm about to show you, but I think it's very obscene. And I saw this on social media and I took a screenshot to show you in this class. Let me try to get this person's name out of here. Let me see if I can crop their name out. All right, I think I got that.
Thanks for removing my name, Lawrence. I appreciate that.
Oh, brother, you don't want to know. You don't want to. Yes. All right, so you don't want no parts of this one. All right, so let me show you all this right here. So you can see an example of something that's very offensive. So this is a Tinder. It's a dating app, and it matches people up. And it says it's a match. And there's a picture of George Floyd's face. There's a picture of a knee. The knee happens to be a knee of a white person. This is obscene. This is vulgar. This is wrong. There's no curse words in this. But I think it still falls under coarse and foolish talk. All right. Thank you so much for all the responses. All right. Now, what kind of things that we listen to can be classified as evil? So, verses 8 and 11 says, don't listen. Let me just read it. Verse 8 and 11. Verse 8 says, it says, for once you were darkness, but now in the Lord you are light. Live as children of light. And verse 11 says, take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness, but instead expose them. How would you define this darkness that it's talking about? How would you define that? What things can we listen to that can be classified as dark? Yes.
Oh, this is Stephanie. Well, it's more. It's also what you watch too. It's really disappointing when we could go to the movie theater and you see a movie and you're listening and it's just a lot of foul language, but it's just a whole lot of stuff just going on screen. Just people just romping around, just doing whatever, and it's just it just becomes tasteless after a while. So I think it's just so disappointing when you do that. But now that seems to be the norm and so accepting in just about everything we watch on TV or listen to in podcasts, just everywhere.
Thank you so much. Yes, thank you. And I think that if we look at I'm sorry, I meant to say this earlier, but I think if we go to Ephesians 5 and look at verse 2 as well, it gives us further context on the course talk. It says, and live in love as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us. I think that we've got to live in love. When we joke, lighthearted joking, it can be very fun. It's something that can be appreciated, can lighten the mood. We have to make sure that we're always doing it in love and not with a vindictive spirit or a spirit to hurt or harm somebody. And thank you so much, Stephanie, pointing out entertainment and media and television, everything like that. And I know sometimes I appreciate us critiquing the media. I think it's good for us to critique entertainment because it's just accepted by so many people. But I'm kind of curious though as to what are things outside I know people watch a lot of TV, especially these days. People on the internet a lot. What are some things that we're dealing with outside of TV and the media and the internet that you would define as dark or evil? How would you things you would classify as dark and evil?
Music.
Okay, very good. So yes, the music. That's another example of the media, and that is definitely music.
Lawrence, I would say the response of people to COVID-19, they just don't care about other people's lives.
Yes. Thank you so much, Mark. I gave you an air horn for that wonderful response. Thank you so much. God bless you, bro. I got my sound effects back, so I'm using them, and that's just the way it is. Yes, sir.
How about now? This is probably during the 50s and 60s. Rock and roll.
Okay. Roll music. Yes. That's very good. Now I want to think.
Almost banned it once.
I'm sorry.
Congress almost once banned rock and roll.
That's right. And then later on, Congress tried to ban rap music as well. But both of those things were stopped by constitutional freedom of speech. Yes, sir.
Lawrence, would you consider gossip?
Very good. Gossip. Yes. Gossip. Yes. Gossip. Yes. Good job, Andre. Gossip. Yes. Gossip, works of darkness. It's evil. The gossip. It is wrong. It is vulgar. A lot of times, if somebody says a 4-letter word, oh, shame. But where's the same shame for gossiping? It should be the same. So, yes, very good. Thank you so much, Andre.
Hey, Law.
Yes.
So what about people who know, a lot of people know that police have negative reactions to people when they're called and they assume that a person's committing a crime. And we got people right now that what comes to mind is the lady that was at the park, at the bird park, where she had a dog there, and the guy was like, no, you can't have your dog in the park. They don't want the dogs in the park. And she said, well, I'll take care of you. I'll call the police. And so she had really bad intentions of having this guy hurt. She said, this guy's attacking me and he's putting my life, me and my dog's life are in danger. So I think people's reactions to others can be really dark, especially when they know that it can be a very bad outcome from, say, the police showing up.
Yes, I've actually seen a couple of police commentaries where the police are expressing deep frustration with those types of calls, where people are trying to weaponize the police against people who they don't like in the community. And the police are sick of it because people think the police are just out here racially profiling everybody. And that might be the case sometimes, but these police were saying in the commentary that they're getting calls, so they got to respond to these calls. They're getting these calls, and a lot of these calls, they go out there and find out it's just two guys changing the tire, or it's just two guys trying to fix the car so they can get up the road. And then the guys feel like, oh, the police are profiling me. But the police are like, man, I wish nobody called the police on these guys. Why are people, doing it? And so, Joel, you bring up a good point, and that is vulgar. And that actually, the Bible says that as this is sin. It says, "Thou shalt not bear false witness." When you call the police and you lie to them, or you embellish or push something that's not true that can endanger somebody's life or could end somebody or end a police officer's career, like, you are bearing false witness, and that is a sin and an offense to God. So thank you so much, Joel. Very good comment. All right. So, yeah.
Lawrence, I wanted to say that I've heard people say that if it's true, it's not gossip. Have you heard anybody say that?
Not that I recall, but it is still gossip. Gossip can be.
It's so true. Thank you.
Gossip can absolutely be true. I think a lot of gossip is truthful. And then I wrote an article on gossip some years ago, and I need to probably republish that article. I think it was good. But to make a long article short, is that, gossip, it boils down to your intention. Are you spreading this information because it is salacious, it is juicy, you're eager to share it? It's something you can laugh about or make yourself feel better about yourself than somebody else? Or are you spreading information because you want power and control, and you're trying to manipulate somebody else towards your agenda and towards your will and towards your end? That is all gossip. Now, are you sharing truthful information because you're trying to help somebody, bring somebody back to life? You want to help to reconstruct somebody who is broken. Somebody's going through a struggle, and you want to pray with a person about what the person's going through. All right, that's not gossip, but it all comes down to your intentions. Why are you sharing that information? All right. So thank you so much, Sandy. Thank you. Good question. All righty. So very good. I want to also point out something from verse 3 and 5 of Galatians here. It says in verse 3, it says, but fornication and impurity of any kind or greed must not even be mentioned among you, as is proper among the saints. So impurity of any kind or greed, it shouldn't even be among us. Neither should fornication. All right. And I think that as Americans, I talked about this Sunday, I think we give greed a really big pass. I think we do not really deal with greed like we need to be dealing with it. Greed is like really going to take a lot of us out. It really is. Like, it's going to take a lot of American Christians out. It's our silent killer. They say high blood pressure, that's a silent killer. Greed is the American silent spiritual killer. We don't deal with it like we should. We should really spend more time talking about greed and Americans not being greedy and us not being greedy and us living in our means and not over consuming. But that's another conversation for another day. But it talks about greed. All right. Now, the last question, and then we're going to move on. We're going to move back to Proverbs. Is verse 19. All right. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and ask it. All right. I'm not going to preface this, although I'm deeply tempted to preface this question, because this handout was not made by Church of Christ folks. Okay. So I'm going to read this, and I want you to think outside of the ways you have heard this scripture for a long time. All right. That's what I'm asking for. I preface it. So I gave in my own temptation not to preface. All right. So how can we speak to each other in psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs? Now, I am not looking for a cappella singing in the church. All right. Like that's I'm just going to say it. That's not what I'm looking for. I mean, that's good. And that definitely speaks to our brothers and sisters. But that's not the answer I'm searching for here. How do we, as a lifestyle, how can we speak to each other in psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs?
Keep it positive.
Keeping it positive. Thank you. And let's just talk about semantically what it means to be positive, because I think sometimes like if I say to somebody, hey, you should wash your hands after you came out of the subway because you don't want to catch the flu. And somebody says, man, you're just being negative. You're always negative. I'm not being negative. I'm just telling you that if you don't wash your hands, you're going to catch the flu because you were on the subway and it's full of germs. You know, like that's not the positive is walking in the way of God. Let's just define it like that. Because sometimes I think people define positive and negative as if it don't make me feel good, it's negative. If it makes me feel good, it's positive, right? And that's really hedonism. So what's positive in the way Becky uses it is what brings us closer to God, what is righteous in the eyes of God. So thank you so much, Becky. All right.
Tone also plays a role in that and keeping it positive, because you could tell someone to wash their hands in a pretty negative tone or in a positive tone. So tone is also important in keeping it positive.
Yes, our tenor is important. Thank you so much, Becky. Yes, thank you. Yes, all analogies eventually break down. I have more time, I could probably have crafted a better analogy, but you're absolutely correct. You're absolutely right. The tenor of how we say things definitely matters. We got to season our words with salt. All right. Anyone else care to share? How can we speak to each other in psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs?
I always say, like, I like Christian hip hop, and there are quite a few Christian hip hop artists that really teach you pretty well. If you sit there and listen to them, they'll really have you understanding the scriptures by the time you get done listening to the album. So I think when the music teaches you, or a lot of people like gospel music, stuff that like lifts your spirits, makes you feel encouraged and ready to go. The songs that do that to us, that build us up, I think is one way that we can apply that.
Thank you so much, Joel. All right, and
Mark,
Mark.
and I like to dance to Christian rhythm and blues.
Oh no, dancing. Thank you so much.
Music.
Yeah.
Hey, Mark, I'm with you there, man.
Dancing the rhythm and blues period, and they right out of the gospel period, and
right.
Distinctly Christian lyrics, and we love dancing to that stuff.
No, I'm just messing with you, Mark. No, that's excellent, Mark. Very good. That's right. Even David danced. So anybody on the phone that's boo-hooing that dancing, keep in mind David danced as well. All right. Thank you so much, Mark. I appreciate that. I see that I missed several comments. I see Stephanie has her hand up. So, hey, Stephanie.
Well, this was you had gone on, but it was about the gossip part. Because I had this conversation, I believe it was with the minister in another church, and asked, I said, well, then that means that the news is gossip, because they're talking about this person divorcing this one, or this person didn't like this one, this person had a fight in the bar, or whatever. And that's, to me, is gossip.
Yes, very good. I watched a documentary on the National Enquirer not too long ago. Very interesting documentary. And it seems that what has happened with journalism is that it's kind of become more like the National Enquirer. At least corporate journalism, in which I mean major corporate outlets. I mean, there's still a lot of independent grassroots journalists out there who do a lot of good work, who I try to follow for news. But, there was a time, Stephanie, where, and I heard somebody say this, I talked to a Westside member a few days ago, and this person said this to me. I thought it was very insightful. The person said, but there was a time when the news said, dog bites man. That was the news. Now the news says dog bites man, and that is terrible, right? And that's bad. Well, that last part is opinion. It's opinion. Why did the dog bite the man? What's the You know, did the man deserve to be bit? Was the man smacking a dog in the face over and over and over and over and over, right? I mean, like, why did the dog bite the man? You know, so the news has become more just reporting what's happening. It's become a lot of rumors. This is rumor. That is rumor. This is rumor. Anonymous source says this. Anonymous source says that. Anonymous source says this. And I mean, anybody can be an anonymous source. I mean, you know, it can be anybody, you know, I mean, it could be a little 5-year-old, you know, who's anonymous source. You don't know who anonymous source is. It can be anybody. And the byproduct of that, unfortunately, Stephanie, is just people just don't trust the news anymore. People don't trust anything. You know, I mean, people have lost all faith in, particularly in the corporate news. All right. So there's been a lot of comments here that I missed. And I'm so sorry, everyone. My chat box closed and I missed these comments. So Cordell Voss said, not some things hurt, but they are words of truth and correction spoken in love. Laura said, so true, Vi, all about context and heart's intent when we gossip about each other. Cordell said, we should not watch TV and movie programs with devil worship. Laura said, rude behavior on the road, reactions to others' rudeness. iPad said, I've heard that, Sandy, LOL. iPad, who are you? Who are you, iPad? We want to know. Inquiring minds want to know. Cheryl says, I do it all the time. And Laura says, I think it's about promoting harmony with each other. Stephanie, do you care to explain your last comment you just made? I don't understand.
Well, it was when we were talking about, you know, speaking to other people in love. And I used to be a target of a lot of fat shaming.
Okay.
And someone tried to look at it in a positive when some person did say it. So, well, maybe they were trying to warn you, you know, to be careful about your health. I said, and I didn't agree with it. I said, that is not what that is. I said that because if that were the case, then the person would have finished the statement by saying something, you know, about health, and not just leave it that, you know, just make it, just looking at you and assess, well, you're fat, you've gained weight. So that's the part that used to get to me a lot, was just, and I would lash out at people.
Yes.
Because, you know, because they were not, you know, supermodel shape themselves, but, you know, I used to get very angry about it. And I just needed some advice back then. And I should have asked, you know, how do you handle people like that when it's not positive?
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you so much. I mean, we're about to jump in and close and pray.